Yes, indeed. What's happening, world? B Marsh Boxing. I'm back at it with another boxing video division. And when I say great fighters, man, they don't get no better than this. We talking about storybook endings, you know what I mean? I'm talking about heavyweights, and they've been over. I can't even count how many heavyweight champions they've been since John L. Sullivan. You know what I mean? You check it. I, we've had so many. From we talking about the late 1800s, early 1900s till now, 2020. You know what I'm saying? Over a century now. You check it. We've had numerous world champions. You know what I mean? At heavyweight. But how many have retired undefeated with that strap still on their shoulder, raising their right hand and riding off into the sunset as the still still as a champion? Not too many. You know what I mean? It's a rare feat. We're talking about like what a man like Carlos Munzon did at middleweight. You know what I'm saying? After he beat Rodrigo Valdez, you know what I'm saying? There was nothing else left for him in the middleweight division. The man called it a day and retired. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? He retired, rode off into the sunset as a great champion and a man that they call champion for the rest of his life. You know what I mean? So we ain't looking at middleweights. We strictly solely looking at heavyweights today. You know what I mean? And there ain't been too many heavyweights who've retired as on top of their game as a champion. But what we doing here, we on B Marsh Boxing. You know what I'm saying? We about to spread some knowledge, educate everybody, including myself. I learned from myself as well. You know what I mean? I told y'all, man, I listen to B Marsh Boxing. You know what I mean? Sometimes when there's no boxing content here on YouTube, I just go to my playlist, man, and I go back listen to my old videos. You know what I mean? You check it, and sometimes I remind myself, oh, I relearned stuff on my own. You check it. So, the first man to ever retire with that strap, still as a retiring as a champion at heavyweight, we gotta go back to the roaring 20s, you know what I mean? The 20s. And we talking about, one of my favorite fighters, period, you know what I mean? Not just of that era. I'm talking about from these old school fighters, black and white eras, you know what I mean? From many of centuries ago. He's one of my favorite fighters to watch, you know what I mean? You check it, a technical fighter, a technician, brains over brawn type of fighter. And we talking about none other than the Fighting Marine. You know what I mean? 65 wins, one loss, one draw, 48 wins by KO. None other than James Joseph Tunney, or some of y'all may know him as Gene Tunney. You know what I mean? Born in New York City, Greenwich Village. Great fighter. You know what I mean? You check it. The man retired on top of his game. You know what I'm saying? You check it. After he had those fights, two fights with Rocky Marciano, he fought a man by the name of Tom Henney, and he called it a night, called it a career. You know what I'm saying? He beat the man Jack Dempsey twice. That's when he became heavyweight champion. He didn't go just straight up from light heavyweight into a heavyweight title fight. Nah, he had a couple fights at heavyweight. He fought guys like Tommy Gibbons. You know what I mean? And other guys who I'm not so familiar with, but I've seen the Tommy Gibbons fight. It's right here online if you want to watch it. Gene Tunney versus Tommy Gibbons. You know what I'm saying? But this guy, Gene Tunney, was a great fighter, man. Like I said, one of my favorite fighters. Whatever era he would fight in, I would appreciate it. And I love this guy's skill set. This is chess, not checkers. Type of fighter, very technical fighter. Brains over brawn. You know what I mean? A guy who is, you know, so he fights with his hands down, and that's to unleash and have leverage to unleash vicious straight right hands, you know what I mean, or power shots, you know what I mean? And he'd lure his opponents in. But he was a slick fighter, you know what I'm saying? Preferred to, not necessarily just knock out an opponent, but basically give him a boxing lesson. And then it's adios, man. He can probably KO you or win on points, you know what I mean? He became a heavyweight world champion when he beat Jack Dempsey. You know what I'm saying? He even dropped Jack Dempsey. He himself got dropped too, but that's for a whole nother video, you know what I mean? That might be a controversial decision. We talk about the long count, you know what I mean? If you know, you know. You know what I'm saying? Then in the second fight with Jack Dempsey, you know what I mean? He gives the man a rematch and he beats the Jack Dempsey on points yet again. You know what I mean? Both fights were 10 rounders. He beats him twice on points, and he fights the Tom Henny guy, and then he retires, man. You know what I mean? There was public outcry that there was some other guys for him to face. You know what I mean? But the guy didn't. Gene Tunney, man, he had accomplished everything. One of the best, greatest light heavyweights of all time. You know what I mean? Only has one loss on his resume, and that's the Harry Grab, a man who he beat twice. lost to once, and I believe he had a draw with him. You know what I'm saying? With the great Harry Grab, the Pittsburgh windmill. You know what I mean? You know, the man beat George Caparti at light heavyweight, so this guy was an accomplished fighter. Hence why he went up to heavyweight, and he became the heavyweight world champion when he beat Jack Dempsey. You know what I mean? So, and we talking about fighters who retired on top of their game. The first man to ever retire from boxing as a heavyweight world champion, still with his titles. And we ain't talking about guys retiring as champion and like Joe Louis and then coming back, then you get beat up and you don't retire as a champion. Now we talking about guys solely leaving, primarily just leaving the game as the champion. They final fight, they left as a champion and they weren't tempted to come back. You know what I mean? This is actually film study right here of Jim Dempsey versus Gene Tunney, the very first fight. You know what I mean? You check it, you know, the man dropped a man with a flash knockdown, dropped Jack Dempsey, you know what I mean, after he got dropped himself. But that's neither here nor there. We only talking about guys who retired as heavyweight champion. Gene Tunney's the very first man to do it in boxing. Who's the second man we have? The second man to ever retire as a heavyweight world champion. I mean, no remorse, no regrets. Left the game with his faculties intact, with his world title on his waist, on his neck, on his shoulder, wherever he put his world title. You know what I'm saying? We talking none other than, yes indeed, you guessed it, the Brockton blockbuster from Brockton, Massachusetts. None other than Rocky Marciano. You know what I mean? Great fighter Rocky Marciano retired the game 49 and 0. No losses, 43 wins by KO. You know what I'm saying? Yes, indeed. When he dropped that Susie Q on your ass, it's a wrap, man. You know what I mean? The man, Rocky Marciano, was a great fighter. You know what I'm saying? You know, some may criticize his opponents, but we're not here to do that. We're just going to, that's for a whole nother video if we were going to do that. But we're just going to talk about him retiring as a world champion. You know what I mean? His very last fight of his career, I believe, was versus Archie Moore, 1955. You know what I mean? You check it. He had been put on the canvas in the very last fight of his career, but still, he managed to get off the canvas and drop the man and knock out as a old Archie Moore at that. Let's keep it real. You know what I mean? Knocked out Archie Moore in the ninth round. You know what I mean? You know, in his title defenses, he beat guys like Ezra Charles twice. He became world champion when he beat the man Jersey Joe Walcott. You know what I mean? Even got off the canvas to KO Jersey Joe Walcott. You know what I'm saying? In the second fight, he knocked out Jersey Joe Walcott in the rematch after taking the world title off of Jersey Joe Walcott. He knocked him out in the first round in the rematch, you know. And Jersey Joe Walcott's another one of my favorite fighters from them black and white eras, you know what I mean? Black and white TV eras, you know. This guy was a slick fighter, you know, at the time was the oldest fighter to win the heavyweight championship, world title. And I believe he did that in his late 30s until George Foreman broke his Jersey Joe Walcott's record at the age of 45 when he beat Michael Moore. You know what I mean? So Rocky Marciano retired out the game, man. There was fighters out there that people wanted to see him fight. You know, there was guys like what's his name, Ingemar Johansson. There was guys like Sonny Liston, Floyd Patterson. But the guy called it quits. You know what I mean? Really and truly, you know. And he got up out the game in 1955, and he retired young in his early 30s. You know what I mean? So Rocky Marciano is the second man to ever retire out the game of boxing as the heavyweight world champion. No remorse, no regrets. I'm gone. Yes, indeed. Who do we have here? Who's the third man we have in the heavyweight division to retire as a champion? Yes, indeed. Lennox. None other than the Lion. 41 wins, 2 losses, 1 draw for the Lion. You know what I mean? Up to Lennox Lewis. I think he had 32 KOs. 32 KO. You know what I mean? Beat every single man that he faced. You know what I'm saying? Bronze medalist. I'm sorry. Gold medalist 1988 Olympics. You know what I mean? The man retired as a world champion, man. Look, man, the man got up out the game after that crazy classic fight when he stopped Vitaly Klitschko in the 6th round. You know what I mean? You know, Lennox Lewis, man. I've said it before here on my YouTube channel. You know what I mean? When he was fighting, I wasn't the biggest Lennox Lewis fan. You know, I liked Holyfield and Mike Tyson more than Lennox Lewis. I'm gonna keep it funky with y'all. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, when he retired, I was like, Jesus Christ, man, last of a dying era. The last, he's the last of a dying breed. You know what I mean? The man Lennox Lewis, great fighter, man. Avenged his two losses to Oliver McCall and Hasim Rahman. You know what I mean? The Hasim Rahman KO in the second fight was one of the greatest knockouts you'll ever see in boxing, not just the heavyweight division, in boxing, period. You know what I mean? Especially to avenge your loss and get back your titles. You know what I'm saying? Great fighter, man. Great fighter, man. The man Lennox Lewis, man. A guy who fights tall, fights beyond the jab, a guy who throws has a beautiful straight right hand. The man Lennox Lewis was a great fighter, you know what I mean? Beat the likes of Francis Boa, Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield, Hasim Rahman, of course, in the second fight. Got that lineal strap when he beat the man Shannon Briggs. Had a crazy fight with the man Galata, knocked him out in one round. Had a tough fight where he battled with that Croatian dude. What was that dude? Maverick or something? Marvovic? I can't remember his name. He was a Croatian dude with the kind of mohawk. I mean, I had the fights with Tommy Morrison, Ray Mercer. You name him, he fought him. Only guy I ain't never seen the man Lennox Lewis fight was John Ruiz. That about it in his era. And Vitaly Klitschko. I'm sorry, Vladimir Klitschko, who was also on the come up still, you know what I mean? So got to give it up to the man Lennox Lewis, you know what I mean? Only the third man in the rich heavyweight boxing history to ever retire as a world champion, you know what I mean? It's crazy, right? That's why you gotta give the man props. One of the best fighters, you know what I mean, that we've had in boxing in the last 30 years. You check it. So only the third man. We got Lennox Lewis. And who do we have at number four? Number four, retiring as a world champion. Yes, indeed. 41 wins. What was his record? 45 wins, two losses, 41 by KO. Two of his losses, yeah, two of his losses are by stoppage, though. You know what I'm saying? Um, we talking about none other than Dr. Iron Fist. You know what I'm saying? Dr. Iron Fist. Look at Dr. Iron Fist on his kickboxing stuff, you know what I mean? I'd hate to get kicked by this 6'8" dude. Or 6'7", 6'8" heavyweight, man. Yes, indeed. Dr. Iron Fist was a good fighter in his time, you know what I mean? I think his era was what it was. We're not going to talk about whether it was great or not. I'm just here to talk to you about fellas, champions retiring as heavyweight world champions and not being tempted to come back to boxing like a man, like let's say, like of course, Joe Louis, you know what I mean? Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali ain't retired with the strap on his waist, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, man, we talking about now Dr. Iron Fist, you know what I mean? His very last fight of his career was a fourth round stoppage when he stopped the man Manuel Char, you know what I mean? But he fought guys like Derek Chisora, Shannon Briggs, Thomas Adamek, Kingpin Johnson, Chris Ariola. Came back after a 4-year sabbatical to fight the man Samuel Peter to regain back the WBC title that he had left behind when he vacated it. You know what I'm saying? You know, beat Corey Saunders, you know what I mean? Danny Williams, a guy who beat Mike Tyson. You check it. So, Vitaly Klitschko, man, retired on top of his game. You know what I mean? Like I said, he has two losses via stoppage. One was when he retired, when he quit after, hurting his shoulder when he fought Chris Bird. And then his other loss was that 6-round stoppage in 2003 to the man Lennox Lewis, you know what I mean? Yes, indeed. You check it, and that was Lennox Lewis' last fight in 2003. Um, Dr. Iron Fist, man, he retired in 2012 when he beat Manuel Char. And he's the very last man we have had in boxing to retire as a heavyweight world champion. You know what I mean? Vlad, Dr. Steelhammer ain't retired as a heavyweight world champion. You know what I mean? He got beat by Tyson Fury, was out the ring for 15, 16 months, came back, fought Anthony Joshua, and that's that, you know what I mean? You check it, Lennox Lewis and Vitaly Klitschko, the last two guys to retire as heavyweight world champions. That was a big gap from Lennox Lewis to Rocky Marciano, you know what I mean? And in the meantime, in between time, we've had great fighters like Joe Frazier, Muhammad Ali, George Foreman, Mike Tyson, Larry Holmes, you know what I'm saying? All throughout these eras, since from when Marciano retired to when Lennox Lewis retired, you know what I mean? Evander Holyfield, Riddick Bowe, you know what I'm saying? So big ups to all these great fighters, man, that we've had here on the film study. You know what I mean? Great fighters. Only four men have retired as the heavyweight world champion. The first one was Gene Tunney. Number two, Rocky Marciano. Number three, none other than Lennox Lewis. And number four, Dr. Iron Fist from Ukraine, Kiev. Kiev's current mayor. None other than Vitaly Klitschko. B Marsh Box, leave your thoughts and comments. Let me know what y'all think about this video. If you like the content, hit that thumbs up. And I'm going to catch y'all on the next one. B Marsh Box, and I'm gone.